Good afternoon. This is Mike Farley with Poolside Perspectives Podcast, here with
Trey Farley. Hoping y'all are having a good day.
Yeah, so we wanted to start off this episode and let you know that yesterday I got to visit with Kevin in the morning and see him and spend some time with him. But in the afternoon, Kevin finished his battle with cancer, and Kevin passed away. And at this point in time, he's not in a place that he's having to battle that anymore. So we're happy for him in that aspect, but sad for our personal losses that we don't have our friend around anymore.
Yeah.
Some of you know Kevin very well. Some of you don't know him very well. So I just want to give you some information about Kevin here a little bit and explain a few things. But Kevin is the reason there is a podcast, without a doubt, because I would have never, ever done this by myself. And Kevin was a let's get going type of guy. And he came to me and said, hey, we need to do this. And I was like, let me analyze this for a while. And he's like, we don't have time to analyze this. We need to get going on it. And I'm like, but he would be like, let's go. And it was funny because he said he was the gasoline to the vehicle and I was the brakes, which you need both of those things to work well. But he wanted to get things moving because he had a tremendous passion for people. And the people that he really wanted to serve was the homeowner. I mean, he loved helping people figure out what was best for them in their backyard. And he said, we're two old guys that have been doing this a long time, and there's a lot of places and that people don't have the resources and information that we gathered over decades. And he said, we need to share that so people can end up with better things in their backyards. So ideally, it wasn't ever about, gee, we want to have a huge podcast or we want to get sponsors or any of those things. Kevin just wanted people to get information. He wanted to be a resource. He wanted to share what he had. So what was cool is he was a little bit different than me. I have been a designer for a long time. And I've also been a superintendent for a brief period of time with one company where you had to do both, but I've always been a designer, and Kevin worked in all kinds of aspects.
Yeah.
So you saw that and the different things that he did. So
we were talking about this before the episode, and I mentioned it would be really cool because I knew Kevin as your peer. I knew him briefly, and I've never had a bad interaction with him. He was awesome. I came into sub in one time for him just to help out, and I was a nervous wreck, and he was so positive. He texted me after he listened to the episode, and he was like, hey, man, I know your dad said you were nervous, but I didn't get that vibe at all. You did incredible. And he was very supportive, and I just want to say that. So I was in a very awkward position. But with Kevin, I was always curious because I saw him as the designer that came in to work, and we met, and they hired a couple of designers in that time period, and he was really interesting because I'm curious on like everything he did before he got to Texas.
To start with, we were the same age.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that happened very young when he was out of high school is he actually joined the Air Force, and he served for a number of years, worked on the planes and got to travel extensively and really loved that aspect of it, and, loved serving the country and was very proud of our country. Then he went back to Idaho where he grew up and started doing construction. And so he was doing everything from building wooden decks and putting hot tubs on them and all kinds of different things from a construction standpoint. A young guy trying to make a living. And then he moved to Arizona where he got into the pool industry. He thought it would be fun to work with swimming pools. And so he went and found somebody and just convinced them that he would be good at doing that.
I mean, the crossover knowledge you would have for making wood decks and putting hot tubs on it, there's a little crossover there. So that's cool. Yeah.
So he eventually he did everything from running a service department, with a whole bunch of, routes and stuff like that, to he managed a store and all the retail aspects of it. He had a sales department. He had his own pool company. And so he worked in a lot of different venues. So again, I'm the guy that just designs things. He did all those things.
Yeah.
And so he had a very different approach from like education, where I was always focused design. His was very broad, and he learned from a lot of different people, and had a lot of different mentors in that aspect. And so, but he learned, the whole gamut of the industry. Now, when he eventually focused on design later in his career, and then when he came to Texas, that's all he's done was doing design. But it was really cool that he basically would bring a lot of different things. And so he would debate me on some things. We would argue about different perspectives. And that was one of the reasons this is named Poolside Perspectives, because he had one perspective and sometimes I had a different one. And we would discuss things. And so he had really good insight. And so that's what makes things better. It's hard to lose your friends. So, and he will definitely be missed, especially for what he wanted to do. He just wanted to help people to learn about things and the industry. And one of the things that I thought was really cool is he had a sales department, and he was like me. He drew everything by hand, but his sales team all used Pool Studio.
Oh, okay.
And so he realized, well, I better know how to do this so I can help my sales department.
That makes sense.
So he learned to do Pool Studio, and that was one of the big things we argued about all the time, because he was like, you would be so much better if you would learn Pool Studio and use a computer and get rid of your pencil. And I'm like, no, I like my pencil. I'm going to keep it. But he became very, very proficient. In fact, he offered to do training and things like that for people to help them learn, tricks and, things on how to be better at that.
Yeah, we did a class, and he was leading it pretty much. And it was a great class we did. We had a bunch of people there, a lot of people that used Pool Studio before, so, their knowledge, some people were experts, some were novice, and he had a lot of great insight. So,
yeah. So, but again, that's the way he tackled things. He didn't know anything about it. He just go learn about it. Yeah. So, he was always trying to get smarter at what he does. And, it was really cool to see how he was so rounded in all aspects of the industry.
He will be missed for sure. And I think we just need more people like Kevin. He's a great guy.
We're going to take a break here for a second and get into outdoor living. So with outdoor living, we like to go to BBQ Bits here. We're going to share some information of everything that you may want to consider in your outdoor living space as far as features, especially for the kitchen. Hope you enjoy this. The griddle has gotten really popular. Okay, and so we get more and more requests for griddles. And if you're going to talk about the best griddle to install, where would you start?
We would definitely start with Evo, another American-made product out of Tualatin, Oregon, all American-made. But why Evo? I'm just not going to sell a product. What's the value-added piece of this? Well, there's two types of griddles as a consumer you want to look at, and as specifiers. And salespeople, we want to go into a discovery phase. Is this the right griddle? In other words, is this going to be a connection piece? Am I going to have, like Kevin just did and you have done, the radius bars? We're doing a particular job that has a full radius bar that wraps around the Evo. This is recessed in it. I believe it's a deck pond or a granite top. We're going to omit this piece here, and now I'm connected with the whole family.
Right.
It's really important. Or are you going to buy a griddle that's going to be in line with the equipment away from that entertainment area? That's the questions we ask. Well, a lot of people want a connection piece. If you don't configure table and chairs by this, you will get a lot of congregation around this. Everybody wants to cook on Evo. They make a commercial side like Mongolian grill. Then they make a residential side. They make two versions. They call a 25, and they make a 30.
Okay.
We do 30 in Texas because bigger is better. And this is a carbon steel plate that has been seasoned from the factory, and it gets better and better every time that you cook on it. 2-zone burner system. I've got an interior burner and an exterior burner. Can you bake on this? Yes, there's baking racks that are on here. You can do pizzas on here. I didn't believe this at first. I have Evo foodie guys that come in here and say, here's my pizza. And I have not learned how to do a pizza. I'm more of a alpha oven guy, but you can do it on here.
When I first came to see you the first time, year and a half ago or so, or whenever it was, that is the one thing that has always stuck in my mind is that Evo. Because when my kids were growing up, we loved going to the hibachi grills and teppanyaki and everything else. And I love cooking breakfast on Sunday mornings, and that is just perfect. I got to have one of those.
Right. Can you hold food? So if you've got a large family, and how does this value added to hold? If I have a lot of community or family or friends over, you can use that vehicle and use it as a warmer. In other words, I can use this to set this outside burner for low and put my meat or foods in the middle of this. And this acts as a humidor. You can put a lid on it, and your moisture control is up here in the top with this daisy wheel. It's more of a moisture control. I have a lot of customers. Hey, Bobby, where's the grease go? You get some fall off, but your access points for cleanouts are right here. And they have little cups that you actually can line your coil, and you can actually slide out. No electricity is needed to this. It's battery op. They make it simple. It's what they do. Pros and cons. So many pros, we can go on and kill about an hour. The only con, and I'll tell you, where do I domicile or where do I set the lid at? Where does that go? It's like Captain America's shield. So that's one thing that you guys have done really well is like, hey, listen, we need that lid kit. There is a device that holds it. So where it would go would be probably on the end of this island. When I'm not using it, you want to think in advance of where to put the lid at. So
Good thought. So I see here in this cabinet that it's sticking out past the cooking island.
Yes.
Is it designed to do that all the time, or can you actually have the counter follow it around?
This is a great question. I'm glad you led me on this because I was going to bring that up next. 2 ways to build this in. You guys know Luter's stone comes out of Luter's, Texas. This is what they call a buff. It's a chiseled edge. Whenever we do a Luter's stone, the stone is so thick, it's hard. Can you do it? Yes, but it's hard to do a radius cut, so we'll always recommend the trim kit. It can be above. Now you're going to see more Evos that are flush, and it'll look like it's monolithic with the top. We see a lot of Decton now, higher-end man-made surfaces. Do you need this? Not exactly. You can omit this and then build this particular piece in to make it get a more of a contemporary and soft feel. As you look in this picture here with Buddy the Cake Guy or whatever, Buddy Velastro. This is built into a granite top, and we have some consumers that want that. They want that more that streamlined look and that contemporary and soft feel. They don't want it so bulky. But to answer your question, yes, it does come outside a little bit so I can access more of the center and back of the griddle itself. 2-zone system, interior and exterior burner.
Gotcha.
They make a built-in cover for this that you can cover this when not in use.
Okay. Awesome. Do you recommend having the storage below?
I do. The drawers are real popular because it's ease of use for your hard lines from flippers, cleaning kit, things like that that can go inside of here. And something that's really popular that I've seen with a lot of clappy islands is under counter lighting that we don't sell. The reason why is that really popular, you can see in the drawer systems at night, and then it gives them panache at nighttime versus what daytime can give you. It's a different look. So.
Have any of the manufacturers started making storage systems that actually have lighting in them, low voltage lighting in them?
They do. There's 2 types. There's one that has a low voltage lighting that's 12 volt, which Lynx makes, and that's their exclusive. That's a brand out of Mississippi. And then most of them have a motion activated watch battery in the drawer, and they last an extremely long time. And they found out that that's more ease of use and less strain on the power supply.
Makes sense.
Yeah, cordless, wired. That's correct.
So I hope you enjoyed the BBQ Bits that we just featured today, and we'll have more coming up next week. If there's something in particular that you're interested for, let us know, and we'll get back into the episode now. So one of the things we're going to do with this episode is we're going to pull a bunch of clips from Kevin and some of his insight. So if you didn't know him well, you'll get a feeling for Kevin. Also, we're going to have something that we're going to do in Kevin's memory. I'm not sure what that is at this point in time that we're going to work out through the podcast. But if you've got suggestions on things like that, I'd be really open to hear some of those things that we might be able to do in his memory. And one of the things he loved to do was answer questions. So one of the things we've got away from is we haven't answered as many questions on the episodes because, quite honestly, not many people send in questions. And if you do have questions, send them in on our social media. And Kevin would really want us to answer those all the time. So he wanted us to acknowledge where people were and where they got their questions and all those type of things. So continue to send those in because we'd love to answer those.
And you can get some Poolside Perspective swag if you do. You can send it your way.
Yeah. So that was one thing Kevin wanted us to do as well.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Anyway, we got to get that worked out.
You wanted to spread the drip.
We're going to take a break for design concepts now. So design concepts, what we're going to do is talk about why we did the things on a particular job. One of the things that me and Kevin argued about a lot was spas.
Okay.
So Kevin thought everybody should have a spa.
I agree with them in a way. Yeah, I love spas.
I know you do.
Yeah,
So
spas are awesome. Now, are we talking just spas? Are we talking hot tubs? Just in-ground spas? Because some people listening to this might not know the difference if this is the first time they're hearing this podcast.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you want to explain the differences between the two?
To my knowledge, a spa is pretty much built into the ground, typically with the pool, but it could also be isolated. Like another episode we did, you mentioned you had a spa on a job that was pretty much set up, isolated from the pool, and it looked like a fountain. A hot tub on the other end will be a pre-constructed hot tub,
Appliance.
8x8. Yeah, an appliance. It's always hot, typically. Put a cover on it. Usually sits 4 to 6 people. So
Yeah. So the industry, we call hot tubs the portable appliance. The spa is something that is constructed in the field, not constructed in a manufacturing plant. So he liked both of them.
Okay.
Because he had both.
Okay.
When he was in Phoenix, he had a hot tub right outside. He used to go out every morning and sit in his hot tub for 15 minutes, and then he'd go out and hang out in the evening and that type of situation. So this particular project, wanted to talk about it, the design concepts with this, because it had the features that he was looking for. He thought all spas should be flush. That was his preference. Okay, because he wanted it to seem seamless. If you look at our logo of Poolside Perspective Podcast, there is a perimeter overflow spa on that pool. And so that was one of Kevin's designs. And so he loved to have the spa close because he wanted to be able to get to it fairly easy for privacy reasons, for, temperature reasons, all those things. Somebody outside of Phoenix, anything else is probably cold. So you want the hot tub fairly close. But so the Villamar project, that was the case. We had a spa. It was located very close to the house. But this particular project was on a hillside. And so we had to do some terracing. So the upper terrace, you walk down to the spa in the center. And there was a center line that went through the middle of this project. And so it created a very strong architectural feel. And the architecture of the house had 3 arches on it. And so this particular project had 3 arches as the focal point at the back, which was also this focal point was providing some screening. So their back fence was basically an iron fence. Actually, before we started the project, it was barbed wire. Okay. They looked out on a farm behind them. And so, but they knew the farm was going to be developed. And so they wanted to create some privacy for their personal space. And so we came in with these 3 stucco arches, which blended with the arches on the home. And in those arches, there were 3 rainfalls. And so the rainfalls created a really nice sound. And in the center, as you went through the center arch back towards the house, that's where the spa was centered on, which was a perimeter overflow spa. It was round to play off the arch aspect of the architecture.
Yep.
And then on the other side of the arches, there was a fire pit. So you could sit in the spa and look through the rainfall and see the fire pit as a focal point, but it was also a gathering space back behind there. And so they didn't mind that being in the semi-public area because currently there's nothing been done on the farm, and it would be years before, but also that's a gathering in at night, not that is big a deal. They wanted privacy more when they were in the pool itself. Now, the fun thing is they wanted a slide also going into the pool. So out of one corner, there was a slide. The other corner was the ledge. And so it was really fun. There was a bridge that connected. The spa was in the pool. So you could actually swim underneath the bridge around the spa itself. So the spa was kind of an island into itself. So it was fairly traditional in design, but it was not formal in design because of all the arches that we used and the plantings that we used around it. It still gave a fairly softer feel, but it fit with the architecture of the home. There was also some cool lions that we incorporated, your standard old school traditional spitting lion, which they had a fountain in the courtyard, which had that. And so they wanted to incorporate those. We incorporated some tile that matched some of the architecture, the stucco matched. So everything was about fitting their needs, which was to have some fun area, some hangout area, some floating around area. They wanted some privacy. They wanted some architectural cool elements to look at. And then, so we wanted to have all those functions, but also something that looked good and something that fit the yard, which there was terraces down the hillside. So the back side of the arches, which were level with the pool, on the back side of them, they were seat walls. So you could sit there as you were kind of gathering around the fire pit. So anyway, that was the project there in Fort Worth, Texas. And it's a fun project that incorporated what Kevin liked best, which was a flush spa close to the house.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love this job. Man, do you know what the selection was for the pavers for the coping?
So that was, I believe, a travertine, and that particular coping color is called Scabos. And Scabos was used because we were trying to blend some of the colors of the house and then also some of the stone that was used on the project as well. And so it was a nice blend, and it has a nice range in color.
Oh, it does. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for telling me about that. Today, we're going to do our little true crime segment, and we've talked about lazy rivers often on this podcast. Let's talk about the pumps. Do you think it's a true crime to not use a lazy river pump?
The lazy river pump that I've used in the past is River Flow.
Yes.
We have an episode that focuses on them. So is it a crime to build a lazy river and not use a River Flow pump?
Yes.
Eric, who was on last week.
Yes, he was.
When Eric was on, we talked about the first lazy river that I did, and he published it in a magazine. And after it was published in that magazine, it got picked up on a lot of different places. And so I started getting phone calls. Every week, I'd probably get 4 to 5 to 6, sometimes 10 phone calls a week about lazy rivers.
Yes, because I remember them discussing the actual flow, and I think you're alluding to, like, they are asking what kind of pump you use to get that kind of flow and not be stagnant, right?
Right. So these phone calls were generating there were two groups of people. It was almost split 50-50. And half the people that were calling me were contractors that were building a lazy river, and their lazy river didn't work.
Yeah, it was way too slow.
It was way too slow.
Too lazy.
Too lazy. So
what was the other 50 then?
The other 50% were homeowners that had a lazy river that was way too slow.
Mm.
And the common comment that I got was, well, we figured if we took a typical pool pump and we put 5 or 6 of those on here, we could get enough flow rate going that it would move the river. And what people don't understand is it'll create circulation.
Yeah.
But when you're moving a river, you're moving not just the surface water, you're moving all the water.
Yeah.
In this channel. This channel's 3.5 to 5 feet deep. It's 6 feet wide. I've got to get all this water moving in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a tremendous amount of energy to do that.
Yeah, if you take 5 or 6 regular pumps, like you're saying, I guess it might work if you get on like a floaty and you're on the top of the water, right? It pushes the top water around. But if you're like a normal person, just jump in, I mean, it's not going to push you much at all.
No. So, and one guy, I'll never forget this. He said, well, I measured the flow rate because I heard you were supposed to have a certain flow rate with it. And I've got that flow rate. And I said, well, how did you measure it? And he said, well, I threw a stick on the surface and counted how many feet it went in a second.
Oh boy. Yeah, because when I think flow rate, because I worked in construction and into pools and get gallons per minute and all that kind of stuff, you can read that. But when you divide it into so many different lines, it's kind of a little harder to calculate.
They were trying to move pumps with a 2-inch pipe.
Yeah.
And they had 5 of them. And so they were like, well, you know, it should move things. So the pump that I use has a 12-inch pipe.
Mm.
Okay. And it's variable speed up to 10 horsepower.
And also for the drains, you have a lot less drains. Because I'd imagine having more drains creates more dead spots, theoretically. You know what I'm saying? Because then you have water circulating into that spot instead of pushing across. So if you have one pump that can power it, the power of 5 or 6 pumps, having less drains would be beneficial, I'd imagine.
So the challenge with using those is you can't get the current going.
Yeah.
So you need something that has a very high flow rate and also is energy efficient. So if you just put a big pump on it, well, once you get the water moving, it doesn't take hardly anything to keep it moving.
Yeah.
So, you know, you don't need 10 horsepower all the time. You just need 10 horsepower to get it moving.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's moving, then it can be running on like a very small amount of horsepower. So if you use just a standard pump, I think it's a crime because from a utility standpoint, you're going to pay for running a big pump all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't have the high enough flow rate, you're not even going to get going in the first place.
Yeah.
The other thing that comes into play is that particular pump is very quiet.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting in the backyard and you're enjoying everybody's hanging out in the lazy river and stuff like that, you're not having to shout over some big, huge motor that's running to make this all happen.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect as well, is the sound that you're going to hear. The other aspect to think about is there something in the pool that's making all this happen, or is this taking place outside of the pool? So all the equipment's outside of it. So in this particular setup, it's all outside. So I think that it is a crime to use the wrong pump when you are going to have multiple pumps to try to do the same thing, and it won't achieve that aspect. So my recommendation to all these people was you're going to need to core a big hole in the side of your pool and plumb in some big pipe.
Yeah.
And you need to call River Flow and give them the layout of it so they can suggest where the proper locations are going to be as well.
Yeah, they need to engineer it for sure.
So, you know, when you look at the placement of these things in the beginning, before it's constructed, you can look and maybe make some slight modifications and things like that, like we did on the last project. So we were able to get less turbulence in certain areas and eddies in areas. Now, you may want to create that effect, but they can help you plan it out if you look at the front end. If you're trying to figure this on the back end and the structure's already built, well, you're locked into a certain amount of stuff. But I think the crime is if you spend all the money to do something cool like a lazy river, that you don't have something that's going to work it properly.
Oh, yeah. And don't cut corners. Go to what they say to do. Don't use a river flow pump and smaller pipe because you think you can get away with it.
Yeah. So one of the things that was really amazing is when we put this whole thing together, Kevin was in a hurry to get going. And so we started producing things. And the first episode came out on October 6th last year. Kevin passed away on October 6th this year, a year to the day after we released our first episode. So we put together a bunch of clips here so you can enjoy, Kevin and his words of wisdom and all the fun that we had. And hopefully you guys can learn some more reviewing those things and just pass this on to other people that are looking for information. And we'll keep the resources coming to provide more and more information and just keep Kevin's memories alive on the things that he helped create.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I want to add is these are just some of the clips from y'all's podcast. If you want to hear more insight from Kevin, because he's a very smart guy, just go look at the old episodes.
Oh, yeah. The first 10 were really the process for every homeowner, the things they need to go through.
Yeah.
So lots of good information there.
Yeah, it is.
So the last thing, just in closing, just want to thank everybody for spending this time with us. Hope you enjoyed the remembrance we had of Kevin. And the one thing I can say about Kevin is Kevin was a true pool professional. In every sense of the matter, he did what he tried to do to the best of his ability and with the skills that he had. And he will be greatly missed. So there is going to be a celebration of life service that's going to take place on Saturday, November 2nd from 12 to 2 at Claffey Pools Design Center, which is at 1625 Brumlow in South Lake. All are welcome to come to that event, and look forward to celebrating with lots of people and telling fun stories and anecdotes about Kevin and all that he's been to all of us. So thanks again.
Poolside Perspectives Podcast is new to the industry, and it's going to be primarily focused at the consumers because my partner and I really have a keen desire to educate people. So again, welcome to the podcast. And I'm going to look over here at Mike and I'm going to ask Mike, I think a really important question as to why we're doing this. The thought came up in my mind was, here we are professionals in this industry. Here we both were back 30 years ago looking for resources to help buy pools, to help people buy pools or to help us get better at building pools or whatever. But people were buying pools back then. So they're buying pools without a whole lot of information and without a lot of resources to even go and look at. And what's amazing to me is the way that we used to sell pools, which was drawing on pencil and paper at people's dining room table. And yes, I know you still do that.
I moved off the dining room.
But it's really intriguing how things have changed, how the pool industry has progressed and what we're expected to do as designers, salespeople, and builders in the industry. And all your points are so valid in trying to give people the appropriate information and education so they can make wise decisions, because you're right. It's a big expense to have a pool. It's amazing to have one.
Awesome.
Everybody loves having a pool in their backyard, but it's a big undertaking.
How about you?
I had a radio show in Phoenix many years ago that I just loved doing. I loved bringing people in and having guests and talking about pools. Like you, this has been my passion for 30 years, 30 plus years. And it's an education almost every day, and you're learning something new, or there's something else and something different. And I've always thought that the homeowners are really at such a disadvantage because our industry has very specific language. We talk different, and it would be really hard for a layperson out there to really, truly understand the language and what it is that we do. And for me, that was a big deal, is I wanted to be able to explain things to people in a way that they could understand. And being able to do this gives you and I the opportunity to pass on a lot of that information over the course of hopefully many episodes. And I want to help people too, because I really can see just how disadvantaged they are when they're trying to get a pool.
Yeah.
And so the radio show was a big deal. Like you, I went through a lot of education. I just have absolutely loved the industry. I've been an advocate for the industry for the entire time. I've spent a lot of time serving the associations, getting certifications just like you. And it just seems like the right thing to do. We've got this opportunity to share this information, and I really feel like it's going to be a lot of good stuff. That's the reason I want to do it, is I'm excited. Additionally, I never wanted to do this alone. And when I came and talked to you about doing this and you were willing, it really spun me up, and I got really excited about it. So I think between the two of us, we're going to be able to share an awful lot with people, and I'm looking forward to it. And today we're going to start setting you up with the processes of dealing with pool salespeople, designers, and how to equip yourself with the information that you're going to need in order to make the best decision possible. So Mike had alluded to this after episode 1 or during episode 1 about the resources that are things that you need, that you're going to want to bring to the table, or at least have in your appointments with your pool designer. Well, it's one of those words that gets thrown around a lot. And, more often than not, I think that there's a lot of things that are taken for granted in our industry. And when professionals and people that have been trained and skilled and educated, when we think of hydraulics, we're thinking about the flow of water, as Mike said. And, this water that flows through these pipes is part of the circulation system for your swimming pool. And it's like one of the most key, most important things of this pool. It's like an automobile in a car. You can have a crappy engine in a car, and you can have a really efficient engine in a car. And one's going to get really good gas mileage, and the other one's going to get terrible gas mileage and give you problems. And so when we're talking about hydraulics as it pertains to a swimming pool, we're talking about the movement of the water through the systems. And these systems on pools that are built these days are very complex. And the complexity is actually a good thing, because it's a way that the pools can clean. It's a way that they can circulate. They keep the water healthy. They distribute chemicals. It does all kinds of things. And, as I have said before, I've done hundreds of renovation jobs over the years. And the way that they used to build pools.
Oh, with the big pipe?
Oh, yeah. The big 1-inch pipe. And, the service guys or somebody would go out and install a bigger pump on a pool with really small piping, and the motor would keep burning out on it. And people would complain about it. I mean, it's crazy to me. And like what we're talking over this past 30 years, just how much our industry has morphed into being this little small closet, little swimming pool industry, to this industry that's now serving up to people these incredible outdoor oases. And that hydraulics thing, again, has to do with the movement of water. So, because after all, this show is not just about swimming pools, it is about swimming pools and outdoor living. And, here in North Texas, we get a lot of requests for outhouses, outbuildings.
Outhouses? Really?
Well, no, I mean, an outhouse could be in a arbor, not an arbor, but a cabana.
Oh, yeah. We call it a bathroom.
Oh, right. I'm from Idaho.
Oh, well, understand.
The funny thing, when I was in the military, I would tell people I was from Idaho, and they would be like, I know right where, that's right next to Nebraska, isn't it? I'm like, oh, yeah, it's right there. Just missing the D and a couple other letters.
Oh, there's a few states in between, too.
Exactly. So I think that shades and structures, how about that?
Okay.
So we know that there's, quite a few different types. So I think maybe a way to tackle this is let's each talk about some different shade structures or shade items, and then we can comment back and forth on them and tell people about the ins and outs. But this is totally focused on shade. I mean, we're in Texas where it's hot. In Arizona, it's hot. California, it's hot. Florida, it's hot. Anywhere in the Sun Belt, if you're building a pool outdoors, you may very well be looking for a way to find some shade and some reprieve from the sun. And that's really what this episode's about.
Awesome. So you got to start with your favorite?
I don't really have a favorite. I mean, I think that shade is undervalued, especially when it's so hot out. But I like them all. I mean, it just depends on the job. I mean, pergolas look really cool in some places. Shed roofs are great at the end of a pool, especially if you got a sunken fireplace area or a sunken kitchen. I mean, it becomes part of the pool. And that's really what these pools have morphed into. They've just morphed into more than pools. They're just these entire outdoor entertaining areas. Shade cells can look really good. Retractable shades. I mean, there's a lot of them. I enjoy it too, but you've got to spend some time out there. I mean, I'm typically spending 2-3 hours out there because I'm droning the property. I am taking 200-300 pictures. I'm measuring everything that I can think of out there. And then you've got to find all the stuff on the property that you're going to have access to. And it's a lot of stuff. One of the things, if you haven't even bought a house yet, and this I believe is important. I said, I was a realtor for a lot of years, and my wife is also a realtor. But when you go to buy a house and you think you want to have a pool, or that you want to have a pool, you got to be thinking about the orientation of the house and how that's going to affect that living space out there.
Sure.
And I think a lot of times, people are so excited about buying a home, they overlook a lot of things. And one of the things I believe that helped us over the years, because I built homes, is just there's a lot of things into home building that if you don't think of while you're building, that are really expensive to add later on. And so this process, that we're talking about, and the whole premise of all of this is, how do we best prepare people for having a pool? And if you haven't bought your home yet, you're in a good position to have all this information at your fingertips or to your ears so that you can hopefully find a place that's going to be best suited for what it is that you want and not have some of the challenges that we've talked about. If you're already in the house, you have what you have to work with. And if you're there for the long haul, again, you have what you have to work with.
Right.
But it could be, there could be a difference in hundreds of thousands of dollars just based upon the property. My wife, she shops like this, and it's funny because maybe it could compare, but she'll look at something and I'll say, oh, that looks really nice. It's pretty, whatever. And she'll go, but it's $200 and it's only worth $60 to me. So if it was $60, I'd buy it, but I'm not buying it. You've got to figure out what it's going to be.
What's the value to you?
And it's different for everybody. And that's, again, part of the discovery phase, which is what we've spent the last couple episodes on. And we're going to talk about it even more now today, because we're going to talk about, what are you going to use your pool for? Welcome back, everybody. This is Kevin Woodhurst with Mike Farley. And today we have an exciting show for you, because we're going to talk about entertainment. And who doesn't like to be entertained, Mike?
Oh, I think everybody enjoys that. So it's a great adventure.
It's a great adventure, is right. And when somebody decides to get a swimming pool, I got to think they need to be thinking about entertainment. Why don't you? Yeah, it's pretty amazing, because I have noticed since being here that there are quite a few people that have lakeside properties that have swimming pools. So they've got access to a beautiful lake, and now we've got access to a nice, clean pool to spend some time in and entertain in, for sure. Yes, and there's just so many things. And, as time has gone by, there's just more and more, and we're seeing so many projects with everything on them. They're water parks. I actually, this morning, scrolling on Facebook, saw a massive home in Dallas that actually has a real water park built into the backyard with the colored slides. I mean, people are getting really serious now.
Is that the one in Plano?
It didn't say where it was at. It just said, look at this monster with a theme water park in the backyard. And if we're planning properly and everybody's on the same page, that can easily be done. I mean, it's not always going to take 10 months to get product.
Oh, yes. This was 20 years ago.
In an Amazon world, we don't get stuff that fast. This is why planning becomes so crucial to these backyards. And that's one of the things I love about this organization, is that that's part of the protocol.
Yes.
Is let's get the stuff on order, get it going. You stay involved with your projects from start to finish, because any designer, I'm assuming, well, maybe not any. I mean, I like to stay involved in them as well, because we're creating these spectacular projects for people, and we want them to turn out good.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fun.
I agree. I was at a PK earlier today, freezing my tail off because it's cold in North Texas.
Yes.
Was a little bit taken back of how cold it actually was, and also the wind was blowing. And when I was flying my drone was having a really hard time even just staying in one place. The wind was blowing it all over the place. But it is very fun, and it's just exciting to see a job go from your creative genius, our creative genius, whatever. And watching it go through the process and seeing it completed, I don't know how you can't not stay involved with some of these projects.